Hey, what's going on? Luke here, and today marks the start of the 2022 NRL season. Well, kind of. The NRL All-Stars game is finally here. It's been a long time coming. There's been a lot of players who've pulled out, and I will say the teams are a little bit lackluster compared to previous years. However, I still think it's going to be a very, very good game. And for today's video, we're going to be doing a bit of a team analysis, going through both of the lineups, and sort of giving my thoughts and a little bit of a preview of the game as well. So, I'm not going to waste any more time. We're going to get straight into this analysis. So, the first team we're going to be going through is the Indigenous side. I think on paper they do have the better side. Usually the Maori side has quite a good forward pack, and then sort of the backs are a little bit lackluster, but I know the last couple of seasons have been pretty good. They had Jerome Hughes, a couple of those guys in the halves. This year, not so much, whereas the Indigenous side, I think, is still very, very strong. Now, looking at the back line, Will Kennedy is the fullback. I think he's been great the last couple of seasons. Got Sharks Player of the Year. I think he's in for a big 2022, especially with an improved Shark side. So I think he's going to have a good season. Be good to see him run around in this Indigenous side. Your wingers are the Hammer. You also have Addo Carr, who is the captain. So there's some really, really good wingers right there. You got the Hammer, who just played for Queensland, although in the centres, but we know we can play in the wing. And then you've got Addo Carr as well. So you basically got the two fastest guys in the NRL on both wings. So that could be quite dangerous. Just kick for him. Kick downfield and you've got a try, basically. In the centres, you have Jesse Ramian and Brent Naden. I know Naden was a late call-up. I can't remember who was initially in the side, but I'm intrigued as a Bulldog supporter to see Naden in the centres. I know for Penrith, he sort of played a little bit of wing in the back end of it, but for me, he sort of made his name in the centre, so it'll be good to see him back there. I don't know if that's where he's going to end up at the Bulldogs, but it'll be good to see him and Addo Carr on the same side potentially, so that'd be quite cool. Jesse Ramian, maybe we can see him hit back to some form from a previous couple of years. Obviously, when he went to the Knights, his form sort of dipped a little bit. He's been back to the Sharks, and I don't think he reached the heights of his previous Sharks forms, but he was definitely a lot better than when he was at the Knights. So hopefully we can keep seeing some progression for Jesse Ramian, because when he first came into the league, I thought this was a potential New South Wales centre. Now he's sort of he's just there. The halves for the Indigenous side are Nico Heinz and Braden Trindle. Now, a lot of the focus is going to be on Nico Heinz, even just in terms of this side in general. Nico Heinz is going to be someone we want to watch because this is his first game in the halves. Now, going through the juniors, apparently he was a halves player, but in first grade, we've only ever seen him play fullback, and he played it quite well, but we've only ever seen him play fullback, and obviously, there's a big difference between playing fullback and playing in the halves. As much as there is a talk that, the fullback's basically a third half these days, it's still not the same. You're not defending in the front line. I think Nico Heinz is going to, I think it would be decent, but coming into this game, it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. Obviously, I was just talking about Jerome Hughes in terms of the Maori side from previous years. I feel like his big breakout game in terms of being a half was actually in this All-Stars game. So maybe it's going to be the same for Nico Heinz, maybe not. The same can be said for Trindle. He is looking for a spot in the halves at the Sharks. Funnily enough, you got the two Sharks boys here. Is this an indication of the Sharks' future? Is this going to be the Sharks' halves pairing going forward? At least they're going to be able to build some combinations and actually get a little bit of game time rather than just testing it out at training. So this would be a good indication on whether these guys could work as a halves combo. Then moving on to the forwards, we've got Andrew Fifita and Ryan James as the props. A couple of years ago, this would have been an amazing props pairing, like amazing. Not so much these days. Obviously, both of them are on the back end of the career, but I think they can put in a good shift. And then in the hooker position, we've got Ruben Cotter. A lot of bigger ups than him. I don't really know too much about him. I know he is quite young. But look, from what I've heard, he is quite a good player. And I think he played last year. I feel like he might have played last year for them as well and was decent. Dave Fifita, Tyrell Fuimaono, and Josh Curran are the back row. That's a really, really good back row. Especially Dave Fifita, he's the obvious one. You can make an argument that he's the best second rower in the game. I probably wouldn't disagree. Obviously, he does have those moments where he's amazing, some moments where he's not, but I feel like a game like this, we're just going to see the best of David Fifita, a free-flowing game. I'm expecting big things from David Fifita, maybe a couple tries there. As for the other guys, Fuimaono and Curran, I think they're quite solid. But I think all the focus is going to be on Dave Fifita, that's for sure. In terms of the bench, Albert Kelly, Will Smith, Jermaine Tanoa Brown, and Josh Kerr. We even got Selwyn Cobbo, Tyrell Sloan, and Latrell Mitchell's brother, Shaquille Mitchell. I think that's how you pronounce it. Basically, he seems like a token player. Like Latrell can't play, we'll just chuck him in. I don't really understand him playing. He's never played NRL, never really been on the cusp of playing NRL. I know he's got an NRL contract. He's lost a whole bunch of weight. It's been a good story in terms of that sort of stuff. But in terms of some of these other players, seeing him getting picked, they'd be like, man, how did I not get picked? But the bench is quite good. Tyrell Sloan, really rate him. Keen to see what he can do for the Dragons this year. Cobbo. There's huge raps in him at the Broncos. He could be anything from what I've heard. Obviously, I've only really going off what people have said. I haven't really seen too much of first grade, you know what I mean? He hasn't really played that much, but just in terms of going through the juniors and even reserve grade and all that sort of stuff, apparently he's been absolutely amazing. And the coach of the Indigenous side is Laurie Daly. So you can see from 1 to 17, but you can see from 1 to 20, it is a very, very strong side. There's no real weakness. The forward pack's quite good. The halves are quite good. The back line is extremely good. The back line is where it excels, in my opinion. I think that's where they will pip the Maori side. Speaking of the Maori side, let's go through their lineup. So at fullback, you have Jordan Rapana, a guy who hasn't played a hell of a lot of fullback. I know when he first came into first grade, he played a bit of fullback. Past couple of seasons, he's played a little bit of centre, mainly a winger, but he is in the fullback position. I think he can be solid for them. However, he's not someone I look at and I'm like, oh, Jordan Rapana in the fullback position. I can't wait to see that. He's just there. Probably reminds me of maybe if like Wateni Lesniak or someone was playing fullback. You have those guys who are out and out wingers who can sort of do a job at fullback, but they should just stay on the wing. That's what I feel about Rapana. On the wings, you've got Morgan Harper and Patrick Herbert, centers Dylan Walker and Remus Smith. Now, I mentioned all of them together because I think it would have been a lot better if you had Morgan Harper in the centers, Remus Smith on the wing. At least they've actually played that. I feel like even in reserve grade at the Bulldogs, they've probably had some sort of combination. Chuck them two together. I feel like that's the more logical one. However, Morgan Harper is on the wing, plays centre for Manly, has played there basically his whole career as far as I'm aware. Dylan Walker there as well. So you got the Manly connection. Maybe that's why they've gone for that one. Then you got Remus Smith and Patrick Herbert. Herbert is quite solid. Remus Smith, absolute weapon. In the halves, you have Chanel Harris, Fifita, and Cody Nikorima up against Nico Heinz, Braden Trindle. Neko Heinz is the real star out of all these guys, but Cody Nikorima, I'm expecting a big game from him. Redcliffe, or the Dolphins, I should say, are looking for some halves players. Cody Nikorima could be your guy. Chanel Harris, Fifita could even be your guy. Sort of haven't really found a full home at the Warriors. Both of them have sort of been in and out of the side. Nikorima was signed on big money, so taking that into account, you would have expected him to be in the side all the time, but it wasn't the case. You've got Harris Fifita as well, who was sort of a bit of a prodigy coming through the ranks, but hasn't really found his feet too much in NRL. He's shown some glimpses, but he hasn't been able to lock down a position. Is that just the Warriors' bad mismanagement, or is that just him sort of not being up to scratch? I don't know, but this would be a good opportunity to showcase their skills. In terms of the forward backs, you got Tapine, you got Erin Clark, James Fisher-Harris. So the two props, absolutely amazing. The captain is Tapine. I know there's been a lot of talk about him with the vax and all that sort of stuff. We're not going to get into that. But in terms of actually, you know, what they can produce on the field, Fisher-Harris is the best prop in the game. Tapine is a very, very good player as well. You know, he's up there. He's up there. He's not the best, but he is up there. Erin Clark, I don't really know a hell of a lot about. I know he's been sort of, once again, sort of in and out of first grade, which does worry me a little bit about this spine for the Maori side compared to the Indigenous one, is that they're guys who, I'm not going to say they're fringe players, but they're guys who aren't guaranteed first graders, whereas the Indigenous side does have a lot more of them. I know I'm talking about Ruben Cotter and Trindle, but just in terms of Will Kennedy and Nico Heinz, they're both definitely going to be playing first grade. Whereas you got Nikorima, Harris Fifita, Erin Clark, and Jordan Rapana. Now, I know Rapana's in first grade all the time, but just in terms of fullback. So that's kind of my point there. Just the spine is a little bit weak. In saying that, like, the Indigenous side isn't like a 10 out of 10 spine, but I think they just got a little bit more of an edge for him. But Erin Clark, he could be really good. Apparently, the Titans are saying he is training really well. He's going to be wearing the number 9 this year, so could be a good sign. We saw a couple of years ago, Brandon Smith chucked on the 9 jersey for the Maori side. He killed it, and the rest is history. Brandon Smith, one of the best hookers in the game currently. We also have Kenny Bromwich, Britton Nakora, and Jazz Tavanga. I'm keen to see Jazz Tavanga, since this poor guy just keeps getting injured year after year, just long injuries too, but I really like what I see when he plays. I like Jazz Tavanga. You got Britton Nakora. Really liked him a couple of years ago. I feel like it sort of fell off the radar a little bit. But Kenny Bromwich just signed a big deal with the Dolphins. I'm keen to see how he goes as well. Look, it is a fairly solid back row. It's not like a real gun one. Obviously, Dave Fifita for the Maori side is your X factor. There's no real X factors in this forward pack. However, it is a very, very solid one. So I can see them sort of being a team that's just going to go through, not make too many errors and try and just bash them. Rather, the Indigenous side is going to try and be flashy. In terms of the bench, though, Isar Masters, Royce Hunt, TC Rabadi, Kevin Proctor. You also have Tapua. You got Jaden Nikorima returning from a drug suspension. You got Wirimu Greg. So I don't really know any of these players. I don't know if these guys have played first grade or not. If they have, they've maybe played a couple games. So pretty inexperienced bench apart from Kevin Proctor. Rabadi's played a couple games for the Broncos. Royce Hunt, I know the name, but I can't really think of where he's played. And Isan Masters, super out of form. Like, he was a guy I thought was going to be one of the best centers in the game and has really fell off the radar. A borderline first grader at this point, but he does find himself on the bench. Look, in terms of the Maori side, it is an okay side. Definitely doesn't beat the teams of previous years. Talk about Jerome Hughes, Jerome the Wire, Caleb Ponga's played for them, Dane Gaggai's played for them. There's a lot of good players who are missing for them. Brandon Smith, talked about him before, Jesse Bromwich. They do have a lot of good players who can play for the Maori side, but aren't. Joey Manu's another one who they talked about the Roosters wouldn't let him play. So I think this is probably the first year where a lot of players haven't been allowed to play or they don't want to play. I'm assuming they haven't been allowed to play. But I've gone through both of the sides. I think it's now to sort of try and pick a winner, predict the game, sort of go through the pros and cons of both sides. Now, obviously, I said the back line for the Indigenous side is amazing. Like, it's a 10 out of 10 back line. There's so much speed. There's so much creativity. I really like this one. Even the halves are quite good. Forward pack is quite strong. There's no real weaknesses for the Indigenous side, whereas, like I said, there's not a lot of experience in the Maori side. Halves, the spine in general is a little bit weak, and even the back line is quite lackluster. So, in terms of paper, the Indigenous side has a much better side, but obviously it means nothing. Once we get into the game, could see some of these guys come out of nowhere and play the games of their lives. We've seen guys like Josh Kerr who really step up for the Indigenous game. Throughout the rest of the season, they're kind of alright, but the Indigenous side, they really step up. So, maybe we're going to see some of those guys in the Maori side step up. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. But in terms of picking a winner, I think the Indigenous side is going to win. I think they'll win well. I think we'll see guys like Addo Carr and the Hammer. I think they'll score a couple tries. Dave Fifita, I think he'll run a mark. I think it's going to be really hard to tip against the Indigenous side. But guys, let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on these sides? Who do you think has the better team? Is there anyone who definitely should have been picked and didn't get picked? Let me know in the comment section below. Anyways, guys, that's how I'm going to wrap this one up. Hopefully you did enjoy it. If you did, make sure you go ahead and leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Also, make sure you turn on the notification bell. Don't rely on the sub boxes. Turn on the notification bell and never miss any of my videos, especially with the NRL season coming up. The trials are here. The All-Stars game's here. We've got the actual NRL season kicking off in a couple of weeks. I'm super excited. I think you are too. Use the notification bell. Don't miss any of my videos. Got plenty of content coming out. Also, go ahead and give me a follow on social media. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke and YT for the most part. My Facebook is Mr. Luke, but everything else, including Snapchat, including TikTok, is Mr. Luke and YT. Go ahead, give me a follow, give me an ad. And that's where I'm wrapping up this one, guys. Thank you for watching. Hopefully today's game, or tonight's game, is an absolute banger of a game. But regardless, I'm just keen to have Rugby League back, and I think you are too. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. See yous.